All right, Natalie, thanks so much for doing this. My first question that I have for you is, tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you got started in like mental health and that kind of thing.
Sure. Okay. The big vague question, but no, thank you. Thank you for asking. So, all right. I haven't had to talk about this in a while. Bear with me while my brain kind of goes back here. So, I am a licensed clinical social worker in Pennsylvania, outside of the Philly area. I was the person who grew up being like, I know I want to work with kids. I didn't know if I wanted to be a teacher, things like that. I absolutely did the whole, I heard psychology is an easy bachelor's degree. I was not very big academically growing up. So I went to my undergrad in DC. I did a psych track. So I was on my way to get my bachelor's in psychology. And then senior year of college, I actually took intro to social work, solely hoping for an easy A, but I ended up clicking with the professor really well. And I loved the class. I realized I was like, okay, I think this is something that I'm actually interested in. I didn't understand social work very much. I didn't understand social justice very much. So I just knew I wanted to enter some sort of helping field. So I'm very grateful to my undergrad professor because she really introduced me to the field. And then we were in a not great neighborhood of Washington, D.C., and we had to do an observational project and really learn about different kinds of communities and the way that systemic issues present in communities, X, Y, and Z. So started to get really into it, talked to the professor, and she was like, I think you would really like social work. I ended up going to Temple University to get my master's in social work. And then from there, I knew I wanted to do some sort of clinical track. I really value working with people. I grew up in the service industry, so being a waitress and a bartender. So I knew I was really good at talking to people. And I was like, can I turn this into a career somehow? I actually ended up graduating with my master's during the COVID shutdown. So I graduated May of 2020. So because of that shutdown, unfortunately, we know a lot of people being furloughed and laid off. So I was the fresh out of grad school young person just applying anywhere and everywhere. I did two internships in my master's program that really honed in the kind of population I want to work with, what I feel like my comfortability level with everything was. So I worked in a school, so K to 8 charter school, where I started to realize just how much the system impacts children and family and just people in our area. So, and then the role that privilege started to play. I had beautiful, amazing supervisors who I'm super grateful for. They were very I guess I'll say they influenced me a lot of who I've become now. So from there, I ended up doing then an internship at a domestic abuse organization. So in Pennsylvania, domestic violence resources are done by counties around here. So I was in a domestic abuse counseling center in Delaware County outside of Philadelphia, working with women who are victims of violence and then their children. So I started to realize that I really value clinical work. We worked a 24-hour hotline, so I got to understand some different levels to certain things. From there, I made my way I actually worked in a juvenile detention center for a short period of time. Very long story short, that actually ended in a grand jury trial that ended with I became a whistleblower and actually was a part of a very big attorney general's legislation, I guess I could say, about dealing with some of the abuse in certain county systems, specifically for juveniles and in the criminal justice field. So I got a lot of experience there. I started to work with the kids in a detention center. So all very mental health, but at the same time, I would say case management. So again, really started to hone in on I love working with the teenage population, the young adult population, and people that I think are just incredibly misunderstood and either stereotyped, generalized, or just not questioned. It's pretty incredible when you ask people questions, how much you learn and start to understand and develop some empathy for them. So after that, I did start to make my way into the private practice field. So I worked in a group practice doing individual and group counseling for the last, I want to say 6 years now. So I was doing counseling, really honed in on my approach, who I like to work with, who I think I'm a good fit for, learn myself as a therapist, not just a social worker. I became very relational, and I have some pretty incredible clients that have been with me for a very long time, and I'm so appreciative and grateful for them too. So then I was going to say long story short, but this pretty much is the long story. So I then opened up my own practice with my co-owner Derek, roughly 2 years ago. We're coming up on 2 years. So he and I click really well. So I had no idea what I wanted to do. My story is to be able to explain. I kind of went step by step, and I think each place, each person I worked with, each supervisor I ever had such an influence on who I've become now. And now I feel pretty grounded and pretty settled doing private practice therapy. And then I do work at a nonprofit community mental health center on the side where we do strengthening family programs for community members who are dealing with any kind of adversity, discrimination, something like that. So yes, so last 2 years I've been pretty settled doing therapy, working with a caseload, and I'm starting to also supervise some younger clinicians. And I think that's it.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot on your plate. Yeah.
It's been a lot. It's been fast. My young career building has been a lot of fast-paced things, but I think it's very important to me that I understand different like holistic approaches to things. So I bounced around, but now I hope to not stop bouncing around for a little while.
Yeah. So my next question is, what sorts of things do you do as a social worker?
So, another good question. Okay. So, I mean, the main thing I'd say is building relationships. Like that's where I would go first is uh I want my approach to be very comfortable, very safe, very non-judgmental. So I want people to understand that it's the relationship that you can build with your clinician that can be one of the greatest resources for navigating life. So some of the things are very much, okay, therapy. My main background is trauma work. So I mostly work with people that come with some sort of complex stress in life, whether it's growing up underprivileged with a disability, if it's being misdiagnosed and all of a sudden you're in your 20s and you realize because of TikTok something just happened. I am having things click. So it's a lot of building the relationship, helping people navigate life in certain ways, identifying resources that maybe they're not aware of. So resource allocation is incredibly important to me. I build a lot of great networking relationships in our area too. I'm in the suburbs of Philly, so with great providers that I feel like mesh with me, that will put the client first and actually listen to them, not treat people like a number or anything like that. So a lot of getting to know them. And then the other piece, the reason I bring in social work is very important to me, is I am very systemic as well. So I also will take a big approach on understanding how people's external systems and also their internal systems are playing such a really big role either in their mental health, their physical health, their relationships, X, Y, and Z. So it's mostly therapy. It's mostly one-on-one counseling, either weekly, every other week. I got a couple of stragglers who maybe come in once a month because they've been on my caseload for a long time. Navigating life, being a safe person for them, and then just being a resource. So if they don't know what the resources are, I'm like, let me be the resource person for you.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, when working with these clients, do you guys like talk about do these do you guys talk about anxiety issues, relationships? What's the whole deal?
All the above so far. I would say if I use some of the clinical buzzwords, I am pretty generalist. You don't necessarily have to have a specific thing or a mental disorder or anything like that. You don't have to know anything about yourself to come in here. I have learned the last couple of years with even just marketing myself in my practice. I tend to, I mean, you probably saw my online bio. I think that's how you found me, is most people who are gravitated towards me as their therapist are somewhat either similar to me or they resonated with something that I put in my bio. But if I go then based on some clinical terms, it's a lot of, I'm going to say complex trauma. I, of course, deal with people who come with a very large major trauma in their lives, whether that was childhood, teenage years, in adulthood, whether it was COVID, something like that. Or their trauma could have been growing up with neurodivergence, growing up with some sort of physical disability, intellectual disability. But the complex part is coming in, recognizing that sometimes you get the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50-year-olds who come in here and just realize I've got a backpack full of stuff in my life. They don't even know where to start. So that's why I say complex stress, complex trauma, where it's building some self-awareness and understanding if hopefully I can put some terms into why people are the way that they are. I tell my clients a lot, I'm obsessed with the brain. So I will give them a lot of psychoeducation, be like, well, this fires in your brain and this fires in your brain, and this is why you're doing that. I want to kind of make things make sense. So a lot of complex trauma, a lot of complex stress is the main pieces of my caseload. The other ones is, yes, people either diagnosed or dealing with minor levels of anxiety, depression, PTSD. The other main one that I know I put online a lot, and this is one that I've learned specifically with working with, I'd say like 16 to 25-year-olds, is I do a lot with people who are living through major life transitions. So if that's they're debating if they're going to college or not, or they want to make a career shift, or if it's something like sexual gender identity. So major life transitions, even if it's getting married or moving or something like that, and just how much distress and complications can sometimes come with that. So I also will kind of scope out and non-clinically would say just humans, like humans in general, what they deal with. There's nothing major that I would say I avoid or don't treat. I see a lot more like OCD coming into the mix specifically. So I have a lot of people dealing with OCD. I have a handful of clients who are on the spectrum or trying to navigate if they're on the spectrum or not and what that would mean to them if they've gone X amount of years with not knowing. A lot of times, people who have been overlooked or minimized and dismissed, whether it's women's health issues, people with certain disabilities, health issues. So, yes, very generalist, but those I would say are kind of my niches and who I have attracted over the last couple of years.
What about modalities? What modalities do you use?
Right. Right. So besides relational, besides just I'm pretty authentic, like what you see is what you get kind of stuff. I'm very big on humor. I like humor and sarcasm. It will never leave my brain. I tell my clients that all the time. I will very often be like, okay, the human has to laugh first, then you're going to get the trauma therapist, then I'm going to be serious. So I am client-centered and relational. So that's my main, and then humanistic, if you know that term. But if I go based on things I'm trained in, things I'm starting to get trained in, I do a lot with internal family systems, so a lot with IFS work. I do, of course, incorporate cognitive behavior therapy. I believe that's a part of just understanding the way that our brain works. But I do mostly gravitate towards acceptance and commitment when it comes to those cognitive symptoms and things like that. Not so much CBT, cognitive restructuring, more of just kind of making those connections, but then we'll go acceptance based. And then, so IFS, ACT are very big ones for me. Let's see. I would say that's the main piece of how I approach most sessions. And then I would just throw in that like everything is very trauma informed, safe, things like that.
Hmm. You mentioned this a minute ago because how important is it for therapists,
Mm.
when clients see a therapist for them to be authentic? Because I remember when we first did the introduction session, we talked a little bit about each other and how what kind of work we did, and we just kind of clicked.
Exactly. Yeah. So are you asking me how important I think it is?
Yeah, to be
Okay.
for therapists to be authentic and
Mm.
kind of
Yeah.
with like not as like
Blank
a
slate.
script or like
Yeah.
a yeah.
Sure. No, I'm glad you're asking it too. I don't think you and I are far off in age either. I think we also made that connection. So I think generations play a different role with things too. So I am absolutely biased. I will make sure I put that there out there first. I am very biased. I believe it is incredibly important. So, and I will give some backup as to why. I started to realize, so when I was working in the juvenile detention center, there was a woman that I knew, one of my coworkers, who I valued a lot. She was very much a therapist mentor for me. So, but one of the things that she has ingrained in my brain, and I completely agree with her, is when you work with teenagers, there's a certain kind of approach you need to take with teenagers. It's not always the same. Like authenticity is one of the ways that they can start to feel trust in you. Because if I'm blank slate, sometimes they shut down, they won't trust me. We know with a limbic system in the teenage years, they listen to their emotions a lot. So I want their emotions to quote unquote like me. So my mentor, now this must have been close to like 8 years ago or so. She goes, you cannot bullshit the teenagers. They will smell it on you. And I was like, what do you mean? And she goes, don't do the role plays how we did it in grad school. She goes, you need to be yourself. And she handed me a deck of cards and she goes, go do therapy with a deck of cards. I'm like, okay. So I kind of explored it. I experimented a little bit, and she was absolutely right. If I would go in of like, okay, hi, how's your day going? They'd be like, fine. Like they didn't want to talk to me. And if I'd come in here and be like, want to play cards? They were like, yes. And then they wouldn't even realize that they were starting to do therapy and do the work while they were connecting with me. So I'm very grateful for her and that experience of being able to build rapport in such a difficult environment where teenagers in a detention center don't trust anybody, rightfully so. So it really helped me understand like, wow, authenticity is a superpower, in my opinion. If I can come in and I even think levels of self-disclosure are incredibly important. No, they don't need to know my traumas or anything like that. But if they want to see cute pictures of my cats, you bet I'm going to show them cute pictures of my cats. Like I want to make sure that they know me as a person also. So you probably see in my online bio too, a lot of my clients know I grew up in this area. I'll tell them where I went to high school. I'll tell them those certain things because they'll go, oh, you actually do get it. You're not just telling me, you understand what I'm talking about. So yes, and then the authenticity part is I have all guys in my life. I have two brothers, all boy cousins. So I have a lot of sarcasm that runs through my blood. So sarcasm will pop out. I even learned sometimes through trial and error, like what kind of client is good for that and they like sarcasm. Humor as a coping skill, I think is great and wonderful for certain people, but just even like basically the state of the world. The other thing that I start to do is I do use TikTok. So on TikTok, some of the therapy videos that I see, I'll look at the comments. So if it's something about authenticity or blank slate, a lot of millennials, a lot of Gen Z and below, they will be commenting going, if my therapist was a blank slate, I don't think I would trust her. I love when they show me the real side of them. I like when they laugh at my dark humor jokes, but then call me out on it. So I think authenticity is one of the greatest ways that I enter sessions. I think my ability to build rapport is pretty strong because it's genuine. I don't feel like I'm holding anything back within myself. I mean, as therapists, we go through countertransference. I'm in my own therapy. I have a great support network, so we can deal with that kind of stuff. So it is. It's a lot of learning. When is it appropriate versus when do you maybe need to be the more assertive, the more grounded? But I think authenticity is very important, and I'm glad you started to recognize it because that's sometimes how I can tell if it's going to be a good client for me or not. You were not reaching out as a client, but I've never done a podcast before, and you were the first one. I was like, you know what? Yeah, I like them. Okay, it helps you
Yeah.
kind of read people. Mhm.
Yeah, it's a vibe.
Yes, see, yes, exactly.
Um, so like what are some of the let's go into sort of the therapy room. If we
Sure.
were like to if if a relationship between a client and a therapist were to how would it go? How would it sort of manifest itself?
Okay. So it's kind of like my sequence. Is that what
Yeah.
you're thinking of? Okay. So again, of course, I'm sure you already recognize this. Like, I think one of the cool parts of the therapy field is how individualistic we can all be and how different we can all be. Sometimes I can tell within a couple minutes of an intake or a consult with a client, I'm like, you would be a great fit for my therapist friend over here. So initial stages is what technically you and I did first. I pretty much have a consult. If it's someone who is a teenager, I'm talking to a parent, a caregiver first, kind of hear what's going on, at least a baseline of understanding, just to make sure, one, of course, safety. Safety is always the number one priority here. So we want to make sure that if it's someone approaching counseling, that they are safe based on regulation levels and things like that, any kind of crisis. So it's like a little bit of a safety check first, nothing too intense or anything like that, to make sure that this is the appropriate level of care, to making sure we're accessible for them also financially, scheduling wise, everything like that. So it's kind of going through the admin kind of paperwork stuff. Does this make sense? Does this work for us on paper? If all of that is a yes, let's move into a full-blown intake. And then my intakes, I tell people, I can kind of give you some of my spiel. I tell people a lot, I'm like, welcome. An intake, it can feel like I'm going to ask you a lot of questions, but at the same time, I am a complete stranger to you, so don't feel the need to share anything and everything. I speak into existence that I believe they need to build trust over time with me. I want to earn their trust so that we can also learn if in a couple sessions it's not working. I want to make sure I find them the appropriate therapist that will work for them. So starting to build the trust, which also can mean like building the surface level, understanding their humor, my humor. It's a little testing the waters. It can kind of feel like a different version of a first date where it's like, is this gonna work? Would I go on a second one? So I describe it sometimes more like a meet and greet. And if I get that rapport in the beginning, I can start to see maybe some of their walls coming down. They're starting to like me. We're vibing. I am very big on that word. Then I might start going into, all right, tell me why you're here, whatever you're comfortable with sharing. So a lot of my first sequence is for them to learn my approach. That I will be pretty direct. I will ask certain things like, do you believe you have trauma in your life and what does that mean to you? And then, but it's a lot of kind of getting the paperwork, understanding if they have a goal. I also explain to my kinds of clients that come, like, I am not very treatment plan oriented. I am very flexible. So if they are coming in going, I want anxiety management, I'm like, great, broad, vague, let's see how it goes. But if they get into a fight with their significant other that day, that's what we're talking about. So very relational, very client centered, but building the relationship is bringing in my authenticity. So I hope they bring in their authenticity, trying to get to know each other over time. So I tend to ask people, I'm like, if you can come in every week for like a month or so, like we can build that rapport. Hopefully have their bodies even get comfortable in my room, in my space with me, my voice, my toys and everything. You might be able to see my little baseball thing,
Yeah.
kind of understand the area. And then depending on where they want to go with it, we can kind of gauge the pace and things like that for them to learn to set boundaries with me, all of that kind of stuff. I want them to know like I am in their support network with boundaries, of course. So building sometimes just that relationship first, and then seeing where it goes from there. I don't have many expectations, I would put it that way.
Yeah, so you're just kind of pretty cool, kind of pretty chill. Yeah.
I try. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm wondering what are some of the common themes when you sort of um, see clients? What are some of the common themes that you notice clients come in with? Is it mostly, oh, my partner's not doing this, relationship issues, anxiety? Is it in between? What is it?
I would say like in between, uh, even the way that I think, I don't naturally think very black and white, all or nothing. That's not really my brain.
Uh-huh.
I'm a very gray area thinker. So when I'm bringing that in because of what you were saying, like in between, like some people do, they come in here and they have a very strong, I am here because I am struggling in my relationship. I don't know if I want to get married or not. I don't want to know if I want to have kids or not. Or during the last couple of months, it's been, hey, I found out that my partner and I had different political beliefs and we know the world we're living in and it's not building the most safe relationship. So I would say there is a lot of relational stuff. It's even at all ages, even the middle schoolers, the relationships with the bullying, the peers, the drama, like the word, there's such catastrophizing at those years. So it's a lot of relational. So if I'm talking to a middle schooler, high schooler, typically it's like, oh, my friends, oh, I have social anxiety. There's a lot of that. A lot of stress. I think we're, in my opinion, living in some of the highest stress levels we've ever seen before, and it's manifesting in a lot of different kinds of ways. A lot of conflict issues. So a lot of people not understanding healthy conflict, what that looks like, being able to kind of navigate the world of social media as well and the role that that's playing with mental health. I believe gray area with social media as well. I see beautiful and amazing parts, and I see it making us smarter, but I also see it having a major impact on developmental stages. So a lot of that. So yes, there's a lot of anxiety. A lot of people come in with those big, vague words like I'm dealing with anxiety, I'm dealing with depression. But when you get down to it in our area, it's a lot of high expectations, perfectionism that creeps in a lot in our area. The difficulty in navigating certain relationships, even child to parent or caregiver. Let's see, a lot of relationship stuff. I'm getting a lot. I've been seeing this way more of people in their 20s, 30s, or up going, I am starting to think I might be on the spectrum or I might have ADHD. And even just having to process what that's like to realize in adulthood and look back on your life in such a different kind of way, that's becoming more and more common. And I'm grateful for social media doing some of that too. I don't think there's anything majorly I'm missing. The other thing that majorly comes to mind is with the major life transitions. Just people kind of, I mean, maybe you went through this too. Like we go into school thinking we're going to do something, and then sometimes you come out of it so overwhelmed. Like I now I have no idea what I want
Yeah.
to do. It's me too. So just a lot of like the unknown, and we know that brings in anxiety, but getting comfortable in the unknown. So a lot of major life transitions with the pressure of also how hard the economy is right now and politics and the a lot of fear coming into what our future is like, climate change, things like that. So it's a lot of that like 18 to 40 range is a lot of the life is incredibly hard for me for the first time, and I don't know where to go and I need help. So things like that.
And how do you sort of help those folks navigate through that?
Mm. I like to stay as present focused as possible. So it's helping them really learn to get out of their heads and understand, trusting their intuition, what decision making actually looks like. Because we've been making decisions our entire lives, but it's pretty incredible. You can ask someone, even people who have doctorate levels degrees, and if I go, how do you make decisions? And they're like, what do you mean? So it's like kind of getting to know themselves. So understanding their strengths, their limitations, learning that it's okay to get perfectionism the F out of here, make mistakes, get embarrassed, feel awkward, do that kind of stuff, stop judging people. So it's a lot of that kind of stuff, understanding their personality and how they ended up the way they are. So I will take a psychodynamic approach and kind of go into their childhood and understand some of that, the relationships and how that built certain belief systems, schemas, things like that in their lives. So it's a lot of building the awareness as to who they are and why they are there. Also, I'm very big on empowerment. So recognizing, I kind of make a joke sometimes if a lot of people come in here and they're like, I don't know what I should do. What should I do? I'm like, you solve problems all day long. I know how to make this problem. It's my job to help you figure out what's getting in the way of you making the problem. Why is this hard for you? So a lot of like them being the expert on themselves, some of those kind of buzz phrases. So a lot of empowerment, a lot of building self-sufficiency, autonomy, maybe things that a lot of us didn't learn growing up, understanding how privilege starts to play a role in decision making and feeling lost. And then, of course, the big ones, because I just said feelings, the emotional words started to come into my brain, just how much our emotion mind can make us feel so stuck and scared. So I am a very big fan of telling people to take more risks in life safely and responsibly, but taking good risks, kind of getting out of their heads. So, like being that kind of person for them that is like, you can do this, but even if you come in next week and you didn't do it, I'm still going to be proud of you because at least you told me. So, it's a lot of that kind of stuff, like being there in the moment with them, having certain goals, but helping them be flexible with themselves, understanding failures are a part of life, quitting is a part of life, things like that. So, there's a lot of self-esteem that comes into that major life transition. So, it's a lot of self-esteem work and then helping them build just like a stronger self-image and a sense of security, and that if things don't work out, that's okay. And that's where the acceptance parts come in.
Yeah. So, and what have you learned in doing this kind of work as a social worker? Is there anything that you've learned in terms of like working with clients that you took away with?
Oh, people are cool as hell. It's number one. I would still stick with the main thing that pops in my head when you ask that question, because I've never been asked that question before, is just how even clients being their authentic selves is super cool. So a lot we live in one of the most interesting phases, in my opinion. I mean, we grew up with social media for sure, but I sometimes tell my clients, I'm like, the iPhone was created when I was a senior in high school. So I also had those stages where I would have to call my friend's mom and be like, hi, can I talk to her? Can I get, so we had to do some of those things. So the reason I'm bringing that part in is I've learned that there's certain external factors that have such an influence on who people think they should be. So a lot of those like shoulds and things like that. So how much, so specifically as a social worker, I know my brain is hardwired to recognize the influence of the systems and how they play a role in people's development and in their personality. So certain parental expectations, even we live in I know because you're not from the East Coast, where I am, we're in a decently privileged, affluent area. But at the same time, a mile down the road is North Philly, which is not an affluent area. And there's a lot of issues and there's a lot of violence and a lot of unsafe behaviors going on. So just even the mix of those systems and how they can play a role. So when we can build the self-awareness, I think people start to realize like, oh, that's why I do that. That's why I think that way. Or it's TikTok telling them that they need to look a certain kind of way. But kind of building that and starting to go inward. So one of the things that I've taken away is just how grateful I now feel to have. There are certain clients who have been on my caseload. We're coming on like 5 years of working together. So when you've had a 16-year-old and now they're entering their young 20s, the coolest part is just to watch what they take and how they change and evolve when they start listening to themselves. When they go inward and they start to go, you know what? I am going to take the healthy risk and wear what I want to wear, not what my friends think I should wear, if just as a random example. So I still think authenticity is one of the things I'm going to take away. I think when people start to really get to know themselves, get out of their heads, they just present so much lighter and freer, and it becomes easier to just navigate life. And I'm so grateful to be a part of that with them.
Hmm. And what do you still hope to learn in terms of something new?
Ooh, ooh, might need a second for that one. I mean, so many things, of course, because I feel I am young. I'm saying I am young. So am young, and I think being able to now even be a business owner in this field too is another level. So my brain went a little bit more into the like owner side of things, being now in a sense of I have some power in the area, having my practice and seeing where it will grow and evolve to. So my what I hope to be able to see is with this newer-ish wave of therapy where people are kind of losing that old school blank slate. I understand there's a need for it. I see where it benefits certain people, but bringing in that authenticity and therapists being more humanized and what that will start to do to this world. So being able to kind of, especially for our generations, it is like we want to feel connected to people. So letting the connections kind of guide some of this. So me saying that in a business owner perspective is I've started to take on employees, and it's been very cool to interview people of all different ages and all different backgrounds and all different even just degrees and things like that and how they ended up. So same thing you're doing with me, like asking people those questions, but we're starting to see these common themes of just how much the system is playing a role. So being very holistic in approach, being authentic, getting to know people, therapists and clinicians coming in going, I want to be here for the long run. I want an open door policy. So basically, I'm intrigued to learn and just see where it goes, bringing in this like authenticity, like letting millennials and Gen Z kind of play a role in our field for a little while. I have a lot of value for my supervisors who are older than me and my mentors. But at the same time, I think we're bringing in a different kind of approach and niche, and I'm intrigued to see what it does. Because in my world, in my very like solo room, because we don't get to see anybody else's, I think it's working pretty well. So I hope that they're going to start to research, like really research, make it somewhat evidence-based of what it's like to bring in authenticity and just being like a really big support in people's lives and seeing how that goes and what role that plays. Because we're a system in someone's lives too.
Hmm. And finally, what advice, tips would you give to people who are trying to enter the mental health profession that maybe want to do what
Mm.
you're doing?
Mm. Building a support network is one of the things that I would say, like, I don't know if I would be where I am without some of my support people. One of them being my co-owner, Derek. Our marketing director, Hannah, is also a therapist. So my very micro team here, we've been through a lot together. And so this being a therapist specifically, if I talk about being a clinician, it can be very isolating and somewhat lonely. No one else sees what I do. We have a lot of imposter syndrome in our field because we're not getting evaluated very often, sometimes in internships and things like that. So building a support network that you have certain clinicians you can go to and they are not going to judge you or put you down. They're going to listen to you and also humanize you. I would say that's a very big piece. Keep your good friends in grad school and things like that. If you work with people, just keep people close. And then the other advice that I would give is please do non-therapist things outside of your world. So, like, be off the clock, take a break, learn your work-life balance, have boundaries. Those are very important. Don't let your friends use you as their therapists and things like that. So, having boundaries, having a really good support network, and I would really always incorporate just being able to recognize that like we are with people during some of the lowest of lows and the highest of highs in their lives, and just seeing that as something that is amazing and being able to recognize that just never underestimate the power of listening to people. It can be a superpower to just listen and just get to know someone, and that's it. So a lot of authenticity, building some support, having some boundaries, and taking breaks where you don't have to be doing this. And then what was my last one? Yes, being
Listening,
grateful. Yeah, my
listening.
highs. Yeah.
Yeah. All righty.